Good evening. Good evening. Welcome along. A slight change of usual proceedings today. You are watching Inspire and Be Inspired with myself. I'm actually broadcasting on my own profile today. A couple of reasons. We were hoping to talk to the guys down on the south coast to celebrate their 30 years of Bump and Hustle, give them some love. But John and Bob were otherwise engaged. And we always intended to talk to Frenchie as well ahead of the huge PowerHouse reunion that's going to be coming up next weekend. So rather than go on the Inspire and Be Inspired channel, I thought I'd jump onto my own profile to try and get as much of your attention as possible. So if you are there, please feel free to drop me a comment. Let me know you're watching. Say hi. Let me say hi to you as well. Tuesday night, the weather here in Spain is absolutely atrocious. You probably hear the rain at some point, tippy-tapping down on the ceiling. But I shan't bore you with all of those details. I want to talk to you about the huge event that's going to be taking place next weekend, and who else better than to tell us all about it than the man himself. Second time I'm going to be talking to him at length. I press my button and welcome along to the stream the man like Frenchie. How are you, brother? You okay?
And how are you, Andy? How are you today in windy Spain?
Yes,
I'm
I'm
fine.
good. I'm good. People love it when I say that the weather's terrible here because everybody likes to wind me up. They say, oh, you're always giving it all that when the sun's shining and walking along the beach. But it's not always like that, It's not always like that. Today, the weather, I've lost count of how many days it's been awful. I really have. I've lost count of the amount of days. But that's by the by. We are here to talk about So just confirm, is this going to be the second one that's actually taken place, or is this going to be the third one that's taken place now?
It's actually the third one. The first one was at Mama Room.
Hmm.
The second one was at Tunnel Club, in
Okay.
which I didn't even know that was going to go ahead because Boris just had everybody on a tenterhooks. So virtually I was promoting it, and 2 days before the actual event, that's when I knew that the event could go a bit ahead officially.
Hmm.
So it was quite a scary situation.
Right, I get you. Just want to say hi to Mr. Smith and Mr. Rogers joining us live, letting me know that all my comments are working. I've got my screen working fine, so that's all good. Also, want to say hi to everyone that comes back and checks out the recording at their convenience. So, Mr. Anthony Quailey, his government name as he's known on Facebook, we all know and love him as Frenchie. Previously had a conversation with yourself alongside Bruce Q in the Bromers Fuck series of interviews. We were talking about how and why Birmingham is so influential and the history that went down in the build up to the All Dayers and then what happened after that. But we want to focus as well as really promoting the event next week. We're not here to promote it as such. We want to get a little bit more in-depth information from you regarding the Birmingham scene and why you believe the PowerHouse was so important. You've seen the show before. You'll understand that I tried to make this as interactive as I can. I can see that I've got another Birmingham boy, Mr. Kevin Casey Jones, with us live, and he's going to be sharing some comments throughout as he himself gets ready for a big birthday weekend here on the Costa Blanca. So shouts out to Casey, shouts out to Kev Malcolm as well, who states the four initials PCRL. We must remember to talk about PCRL because we didn't really go too in depth before, did we?
Okay, I mean, like with PCRL, I must admit, I was one of, when it was launched, it was actually launched on my birthday on the 23rd of May, 1985. And I was one of the original six DJs that started that. So it was, I must admit, with the radio side of things, it really was a journey that I can go into. And you briefly was at the Masters of the Airwaves book launch that I was involved with.
That actually came up in my memories a few years ago. It would have been this week. I think it was 2014.
Yeah, 2013 actually. Oh,
2013.
no, yeah, 2013. I can't remember. I think it's 20. You might be right. Oh, you got a better memory than me, so I would say
The
2014.
only reason I believe it was 14 because I saw our friend Richie Bartes, pop up in the my Facebook memories. So that's by the by. Shouts out to Nicky P, stateside. How are you, brother? One love to you. Okay then, Frenchie. So we spoke at length before. Tell me what you believe is some important factors along the way that make Birmingham, and particularly the powerhouse, uh, the hub to be in the Midlands on the all-day circuit.
Well, everything went through generations, really, and you had many influential figures such as like Colin Curtis, Neil Rushton. You had people like Sean Williams. You had people, like Jonathan, who was very much a big. And how can I forget the legendary Graham Wall, who helped to cultivate the start of the all-day scene in Birmingham. So, it was a hub of like where Birmingham individuals would travel, and they had this reputation of being party animals,
Hmm.
but also as well through the DJs at the time, they created a scene which coincided with the dancers, which created this energy, this style, this effort where London always had its pitch, but so did Birmingham as a second city. And musically, the Birmingham influence was probably just as influential as the London scene around that time. I can't forget Manchester, I can't forget Nottingham, but everybody had their own different interpretations.
Hmm. Well, I at the moment speaking to a few different people up and down the country. I've done many interviews that actually grew legs and it got a life of its own. As I said earlier, we called it Brummer's Fuck. In a few weeks' time, I'm going to be talking to people further afield and they're going to be adding their part to the story. So you mentioned Manchester, you mentioned Nottingham. We're going to be talking to people regarding Sheffield, Leeds, Bradford, Huddersfield. And those guys lay a lot of claim to being more influential than London on the music scene in the UK. So it's a point of contention, but it's definitely one that needs to be explored because everyone looks at things from their own romantic viewpoint, don't they?
They do.
They
I
do.
mean, for my part, I would have to say, working in a record shop, an influential record shop for a period of time, I would see a lot, I would hear a lot. And I can't talk about other cities, but I can talk about Birmingham.
Mhm.
And without a matter of fact, the Birmingham influence on the music scene at that time was key. Even like, as I said, Colin Curtis would state that the Birmingham influence on the jazz funk scene at that time was a massive factor where people would the core like people who was dancing and who was presenting themselves as Birmingham music lovers, you know, it you can't take it away. Birmingham had a massive, massive influence. And I was fortunate enough where I went to a friend of mine who had a band, and this is just me not being in the music scene. He had a band called Calico from Erdington, funny enough, a neck of the woods you know well.
Mhm.
And later on, that band became Mead and Wave, which featured a singer called Jackie Graham.
Mhm.
But at that time, there was a dance, their initial dancers, Calico, his name was Elliot Brown. He introduced me to the world of like the jazz funk scene, actually in a club at the Mayfair in Birmingham. And I seen great because when I was a 16-year-old, many moons ago, I used to go to the Graham Ward shop every Thursday with my payday just to buy some records. But I was just a music lover. I wasn't anybody significant. I wasn't a DJ, anything like that. I was just a music lover. But when I went to that night, where Ronnie Harris, Gary's Gang, all those disco, like the disco element it was at that time. And it was just, I said to myself, I'm home. This is brilliant. I didn't, I used to listen to the radio, Tony Lutz, Tony Prince, and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is, though, actually going to the club and seeing the dancers, seeing the style, seeing the interpretation, it was just home for me. Mm-hmm. And I wanted more. And I couldn't believe, and I can readily believe, when I seen that for myself as a Brummie for the first time, I take on board everybody in Manchester, in Sheffield, in, I don't care, Hull, wherever they are, they would be jealous of the fact that Birmingham had such a style, a presence, and an arrogance.
Yeah.
The only city that could hold that arrogance against the Birmingham lot was London, of course, because London just looked at themselves as the bigger boys. But the thing is, though, it created a scene which up to today, with many individuals that was involved, and even onto the dancing, which, you are a pivotal member of that. You continue that legacy, you continue that energy. And, I'm just sorry, I'm proud to be a Brummie when I see all those things.
We fly the flag loud and proud. So we got Schoolie with us. Good evening, sir. A gentleman who's going to be with us next weekend, Sunday, April the 17th. I'm going to keep mentioning it throughout the course of the evening because it's very important. Schoolie is dusting off their headphones and coming out. Obviously, it's been a very difficult couple of years for all of us. I'm looking forward to spending some time with Simon over that weekend. And actually, before I say what I was going to say, I'll continue to say hi to the people with us. Joanne Dale says, coming from the all-day scene and travelling from Derby to Rock City and then onto the PowerHouse was the greatest time for music, jazz, funk and rare groove. Thank you for being here, Joanne. Stick around. We're going to be sharing a lot of those tales. Stevie Smith also saying hi to Schoolie. Black Wax is saying, what happened to the Bump Boys? You'll have to talk to Bob about that, Steve. And Birmingham PowerHouse was the best, says Mr. Kevin Malcolm, a gentleman alongside his brothers who was a regular on the scene, as I'm sure you're aware. So we'll get back to the history. Tell us about the way that you've got the rooms very briefly, because as I say, I don't want it to focus too much on next week, but it is all about next week without contradicting myself. Tell me how you've got the rooms split next week, next Sunday.
Well, the rooms are split like this. The main room, of course, will present a special memory, a special presence of, I'll never forget what Jock Lee said to me at Momaroo. He looked at me and we was at the front of the club and he says to me, Frenchie, I have to say this reminds me, this is the Birmingham version of the club, I think the Paradise Club or the Club 54 in America. Mm-hmm. And because I must admit, the atmosphere of that night, just amazing. I couldn't enjoy it for obvious reasons because I was helping to coordinate it, but from when I was looking down from the front to the back, I said to myself, wow, I'm not really a person that kind of takes and, appreciate things like that, but I really had to shake my head inside. And I said, wow.
Yeah, I've done it. Because I know you struggle. You stress a lot. I say we all stress a lot in the run up to an event because it is a very stressful time, not only for financial reasons, but just so much to coordinate. And it did pay off that very first event. So continue to tell me about the breakdown. Room 1. So
the concept of the rooms, the different rooms, was to try to integrate some of the original of having like one room for the main music part and the other room for jazz and so forth. But what I've done this time around, I've done a main room, which of course will reflect the PowerHouse as it was then. And I've got Chris Reed, Chris Reed, who was one of the DJs. He was a jazz DJ mainly, but he also played in the main room. So I've got Chris, I've got Colin Curtis, well, the legend himself, Colin Curtis. And I've got a young kid called Frenchie as well, who'll be a part of that that playing the core. And then also as well in the main room, I've got Bruce Q, he'll be doing a set, and I've also got Cooley and Kenny B, who'll be doing a set as well in the main room. So the whole ethos, Cooley did a good job for the first one when he finished it. You know, the night was magical. As I said, I couldn't really appreciate the time, whereas when I listen to people, that's when I kind of, okay, then I can calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
But
it's always a time. It's always a time for reflection when you look back on the videos, you look back on the posts on Facebook, you see the photographs, and that energy rolls on for weeks and weeks. So I interrupt you then, sorry. Room 2?
I'm going to be selfish how I say this. I call it the Soulful Rhythm Sessions room. That is my room. You know, I know people's going to be surprised how I'm going to say this, but the Soulful room is for me. I wanted that in there. So I've got DJs, a certain young man who I remember seeing him when he was 15 years old, Andy Ward, a record buyer. I've seen Sean McCabe also as well. I just love his music. I love his production. And I just wanted to have Sean in there as well. I love the energy of Neil Pinnock, because the few times I've seen him was at Vocal Booth. And it kind of, I resonate where I'll watch and I'll notice things. I won't say nothing, but I'll notice things. And I thought, you know what? It'd be nice to bring it, because when you couldn't do the last one, so I brought Neil in. So I thought, you know, I'd like to keep that hub, that core. And then also as well, I like Byron. Byron's got an energy, and he also helps me from time to time doing a video for me. So he's got a really creative touch. And of course, on the broken side, I've got the man himself, Mr. Liquid Fusion, Bruce Q. So as far as punters looking from the outside, you know, they see everybody, I think, represents. And for me, I had to have you. I've asked you 3 times. The first one, you couldn't make it. I can't remember why now. The second one, of course, COVID.
I just said no.
COVID took out everybody, you know, so that was COVID. So with this one, I'm so happy that you're on board on this one, because as I said, for my part, when I fell out of love with music, there was only 2 people who gave me my love of music back. It was yourself and Deli G.
Oh,
so
thank you for saying. So we'll come on to the third room in a little while, and the live acts. What I want to do, you saying that about 2 guys who gave you your love for music back, myself and Deli G. Let me roll back the years to where I got my inspiration from at the PowerHouse on a Sunday. Now, I'll be the first to admit my memories of the PowerHouse and specifics are very sketchy, because at the time I was going, I knew I loved the music, I knew I loved to dance, and I knew I loved walking around that bloody venue so many times, up the stairs, around the bottom, up the stairs, looking for girls. That was the PowerHouse for me. And I did say there's a huge difference between being 15 and 16 years of age in a club like that and being 19 and 20 years of age. A huge, huge difference. So my experiences of the PowerHouse back then were different, but they were oh so formative. They shaped my passion for the music. As years progressed, I got to understand who I'd been listening to, but I'll be honest, at the time I didn't have the faintest idea, but it was so very, very inspirational, so influential in a lot of the DJs' lives in the Second City. Going back to the comments, Elaine Piddock, a big supporter of yours, I know, representing. It was great to see Elaine recently. She says the first PowerHouse reunion was off the hook from start to finish. We danced all night and people still didn't want to stop. after 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, that's a testament indeed when you're talking about people who are 50, 55 plus, it's no mean feat. Also, Kevin Casey says Schooley set was class at the first one, but he couldn't last until the early hours. And he says it's an age thing. And he's a young pup. And Justin Bond jumps in and says, yes, Frenchie. Big up, Justin. How are you, brother? So, yeah, my formative years spent in that incredible place. Tell us about some of the highlights. Tell us about some of the challenges. And just remind me again of your involvement way back then.
Okay. I mean, before I do that, I'll the best way I can say your experiences as a young person, put yourself forward 10 years playing at Marco Polo, starting to play the Southport and all this. Now, you became me, not me physically, but me as far as a person in the forefront. And see, you enjoyed both sides of being a punter, being wowed by the scene, to being actual innovator in making people dance and create. So that is an important part of your history. It's an important part of your upbringing. But going back to the PowerHouse itself, or the whole scene at that itself, it went through generations where it started at the Locarno, where you had a Northern Soul room, and you had in the Bally High, which was a jazz funk session, and basically cultivated from there, where the music was underground, and that was the thing I have to say. It was underground. The scene was underground. The people, as I said, represented a certain way of living style, and they took it forward in clubs like Chaplin's and Rum Runner, and it cultivated from there. And then what happened when Locarno closed down, and what had happened, a promoter from Preston, he came. I just started working at Summit in 1980, and 1981, early 1981, the all-day scene in Birmingham was dead for, I think it was about 2.5 years, something like that. And he came to Birmingham looking for a club to start the all-day scene in Birmingham. So he says to me, I was in Summit, and at the time I was working on the ground floor at Summit. It was at the baby stages. And he says, Tony, help me find a club. And if you help me find a club, I'll look after you. So in reality, as far as the all-day scene was concerned, he helped to create this DJ called Frenchie. At the time, it was Frenchie T. Frenchie and T for Tony. So what we did, we went to the first place, Everton Webb, who used to be with Big Life, and he helped out with Network, and so Everton, God bless his soul. He was a resident DJ at Maximilian's. So we had it there. So the very first all-dayer that's restarted after the closure of the power of Locarno, it went to Maximilian's, and we did it two times there. And for me, okay, my ego was being a bit massaged a little bit, being a part of this scene and being a DJ, because I never seen myself as a DJ. I'm just a glorified record collector. But what happened, it then evolved to the next club. I think it was Tony Griffin who probably helped us get that at Snobs.
Okay.
But it went to Snobs second. And then from there, we only did it once. And then it was Romeo's and Juliet's first. It went to Romeo's and Juliet's. I think there was about 3 or 4 sessions there. Then Romeo's and Juliet's changed to Steptoes. So Steptoes, again, about 3, 4, probably 5. And then John Tully, who used to run a night at the Crown and Cushion in Perry Bar, he ran a night there, and he came to Birmingham, and he started the PowerHouse all days, because the PowerHouse was a brand new Mecca club. Had all at the time, it had the sound system, the decoration. It was a super club. It was one of the first super clubs. I think Rock City was one for Nottingham, and somewhere in Doncaster, Seventh Heaven, I think it was the other one. It was one of the
See,
first
that's
super clubs.
crazy because my jaded memory of the Powerhouse was that it was a little bit old and tired. I
No,
don't. That must be like a broken memory. Maybe I'm thinking of this smelly carpet or something. Because then eventually, jumping
yeah,
ahead, when it became the Ritzy, that to me was the glitz and the glamour. But I don't remember the Powerhouse. I don't remember ever being wowed at the
no.
Powerhouse.
In the Powerhouse main room, because I had the lights, because the big thing about the Powerhouse was the lighting.
Hmm.
Also, as well, the sound system was serious.
Hmm.
At that time, it just captivated, a record. When you hear the bass played in the Powerhouse, you heard the bass play. And one of my favorite memories was Roy Ayers was on concert. I've mentioned this on Facebook many times. Roy Ayers was in concert at the Powerhouse and that particular show,
Hmm.
and he Ingram DJ's Delight, the record had just come out and import. So I was the warm up at the time. So I played. Nobody was there, so I played it, and Royers and the band had just finished doing their sound checks and everything, and they stayed and they jammed with it. I must admit that was the best version of DJ's Delight I ever heard. I wished I had a camera that I could record it, but that was
Wow,
speaking.
back then you would have had to
Yeah.
have like a suitcase on your shoulder.
Oh,
Shouts out to Jeff Jefferson. Love the Powerhouse. How are you, brother? Jeff, actually, please message me. We need to coordinate us talking, brother. Forgive me. I've had so much going on. I completely forgot to get in touch. Joanne Dale repeating the Powerhouse was bad. And Mr. Chris West says, I could listen to this all night, a proper history. Now, Chris is a gentleman who I would have cut my teeth with on the clubbing scene. Chris, his relative Lonnie, who you will know very well,
oh
and
yeah.
his cousin Ashley. We started going out ourselves up and down the country, travelling around to the early Prestat in Soul weekenders. So we all have memories of these young snotty-nosed kids, trying our best. And I've joked with you on several occasions about Randy on the door, me going
Yeah.
up there, trying to get a little bit of a tash with my provisional driving license scrubbed out with, in pencil, added a couple of years on there. So I was 18. One of the first ones in the queue to get in. A totally different experience to the main hardcore dancers who would have been traveling around the country. So tell us about some of those integral members of the crew, because it is all about community, isn't it? And the Powerhouse was built around a strong community.
I have to admit, at that time, because from, say, the Lacana period where it evolved into the period before the Powerhouse, there was a family element that was developed on the scene. And I was fortunate enough to organise with Shaquille Dixon at the time, where he was organising coaches to go around the country. And the thing with especially what was so pivotal was the very first Powerhouse all day, the very first one, where a record had just come out on white label, but the record was kicking off, and it was a guy called David Joseph. You Can't Hide Your Love.
Mm-hmm.
He was the very first on the opening session of the Powerhouse All Days. He was the very first PA there,
Okay.
and it was just everything was just right about that day. Everything was just right.
And was it ram out from the first
Oh
one?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So are
It
we
was
talking by the end of
that was
81 or the beginning of 82?
1983. That was
83 at the
1983.
Powerhouse. Okay.
So what happened? There began a culture of Birmingham. This at first it was like once a month. Birmingham, Nottingham, Birmingham, Nottingham. But in between that, we had I call it the family. Nothing else better to do, looking for somewhere to go. So we'd go to places like your Doncases, your Prestons, your Shrewsburys. It became a way of life for people, just like the early raves where they'd go to farms and all these. It was the same sort of culture
Well,
with
let me
your
let
day.
me ask you a question because it's very
Yeah.
well documented. I was talking to Michael Brown a few weeks ago, talking about the reggae scene, the sound system scene, and about the blues culture, the sound system culture grew in the UK mainly from the the need to occupy our own spaces, for want of a better phrase. So, how did you guys get away with it in big bad Birmingham? How did you manage to get away with having all of these, you know, roughneck dancers, black trendy youths in a mainstream venue?
Well, like I said, what was the fascinating part was that a family core had developed. So it started way back. And to be fair, the one thing I didn't realize is only when I did interviews myself with other people, we all came from the reggae background. I'm talking about earlier now,
Hmm.
because that's what we was raised on, that was what we was brought on. And the soul scene developed itself in a different way where a core of people was involved with it and it just grew, it just developed. And like somebody like myself went to a night, heard the music that was, you only heard it on the radio, and just to hear it in the club and watching the interpretations of people dancing, dressing, also there was a certain arrogance as well. And to be part of the in crowd, everybody wanted to be a good dancer. Everybody wanted to be part of that in crowd to say, yeah, I can dance too. So I always used to think of it like this. Erdington was America. Handsworth was Jamaica. That's
Right.
how I always used to look at it.
Hmm.
And going back to what you were saying about the culture, again, it became a way of life to go to different places, to dance, to enjoy the music. There was a love for the music, and also there was like I said again, there was a brotherhood.
Hmm.
There was a brotherhood and a sisterhood that enjoyed the music as well, and it just grew and grew and grew.
Well, without getting too political about it and taking you off the avenue that we're discussing, if you think about the birth of the All Dayers and the rise of the popularity, that ran side by side with a lot of political unrest on the streets. It led to the uprising on the streets of Handsworth in '85 and a few years beforehand. So again, the question is, how did you guys manage to escape that and not be polarized by it all?
Well, see, it was a different thing. I mean, after the Handsworth riots, there was a reporter from the BBC. He came up from London and he wanted to go around the Handsworth and the Zell's Road where all the problems had took place. So I took him around all the places, and it was quite, you know, culturally, we had unrest. For whatever reason, we had unrest. But when it came to the music side of it, the things that you found, and I suppose from my part where I started to get involved in more the promotion side then, was that you still had the barriers as far as like getting a nightclub,
Hmm.
because you could only get certain clubs on a certain night. There's no way you can get a Saturday, but you can have it on a Monday, Tuesday, or a bank holiday. That was when you was allowed to have a club. So there was still a lot of, I call it the political side of it that was there. But
Hmm. So
again,
it did exist up the town still then.
oh, definitely, most definitely. But I have to smile when I think about this, when I think about some of the trips that we used to go, the coach trips and everything, the roughnecks, mixing with the soul boys, mixing with the reggae soul boys, it was quite a joke.
Hmm.
And I think about people like Barrington and all of them, how they used to,
Hmm.
they loved it.
Barrington, who we've just lost.
Yeah,
May God
yeah.
rest his soul.
Yeah.
So tell us about, because you kind of skipped over it when we talked about Bruce. Tell us about the infamous coach trip where half of the coach went missing.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Well, there's quite a few stories when it comes to the coaches, but the one that, especially at service stations, but one that always makes me laugh, and I won't mention no names.
Tell them, tell them.
No, I can't mention no names, and some of them are very famous. And what I will say is this: we was going to Rock City had a Friday night, so for a period of time they had a Friday night. So I'd organise a coach to go there, and we stopped at this one petrol station. And God forbid, why did I do that? Why did I do that? All I seen was the boys, and I'll say the boys, helping themselves to petrol cans, to chocolates, to drinks, to chocolates, walking in and walking out. It was a miracle. We never had the coach stopped, searched, and people stripped from the coach. It was a miracle. But the funny thing is that particular night, it was a really good night at Rock City. As soon as we came out, it seemed as though the NF came as well. So there was a massive street ball on at the same time. So, I look back on that and I look at it as a funny experience of, just a part of the coaches. Other people are telling stories about at the service stations and so forth, where it was a bit horrific, but it was just part of the way. It was just
What was the one where you all ended up at a farm or something?
Oh God, right. Now, Rock City on the Sunday was doing an all day. It was Rock City's turn. I was actually booked to play in Scotland, so I put together, with myself and like Shaquille and a few, we put together a coach, and it was like the first time a coach of Brummies was going to dance. Now, when we got there, I was shocked to see that we couldn't find it, so we had to get a taxi driver to take us there. It was out in a barn. So what had happened in the meantime, the one slightly cutting back, there was 4 coaches going to Rock City from Birmingham, 4 coaches. Whereas we had a great time in Scotland, and Paul Murphy, the DJ, was with us as well. We brought him back with us because he was playing at Rock City. So he came back and he loved it. He says, you guys are crazy. He really loved it. And so the 5th coach, I call it the professional coach, the 5th coach came back, and it was a fascinating experience. It was a great experience. And for all of us who went on that, it will always be etched in our memories because, going all the way to Scotland, having a good time in Scotland, and then coming back, it was the first time a coach went up there, as far as Brummie dancers was concerned. And it just part of the memorabilia of being a part of that scene.
Well,
And
so many of us listen to these stories, you look back at them with such romanticism, if that's the correct phrase. Manjit says, hi Frenchie, how you going Manjit? Cliff Williams, good evening sir. He says they had the same in London, all dayers followed by unrest. Jenny Buckley, good evening, my dear. She says, so true, Frenchie. A sisterhood and a brotherhood was created. It was all love. It was also an escape from the pressures of life back then. Susan Angus, good evening. How are you? Someone I would have been visiting the events with at the same time. We're both the same age, went to the same schools. And Jenny says, good evening, Andy and Michelle. Michelle's in the living room. It's just me and Frenchie discussing the good old days, throwing forward to next Sunday, Easter Sunday, 17th of April, the 3rd PowerHouse Legendary All Day Reunion, a tribute to the Birmingham Jazz Funk All Dayers. We never got around to talking about the live acts and the third room either.
Okay. Now, the third room, I'll start with the third room. The initial part of the third room, because I wanted to have a jazz room, But the thing is that the original venue that it was going to be held, the venue was just too big. It would hold 500 people. So I just couldn't do a specific jazz room where it would have just looked, it would have looked silly. So I thought, okay, turn it into a chance for people to reminisce. Now, when I say reminisce from 9 o'clock, but it's going to be from 8 o'clock now because the night starts from 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Curtis is going to do a jazz, funk, and disco session. Now, I know as far as disco is concerned, with all the re-edits and everything, it's massive now. It's massive. But who better than to have one of the originals play the disco? Mm-hmm. So that was my thinking in around that, where, you know, having Colin express himself properly with the disco and also with the jazz funk, not jazz, the jazz funk. That's what I wanted to say. Well, okay, then just let rip. Just let him let rip. Give him the platform. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I have to give many, many thank you because I always seem to miss him out. But I have to give a massive shout to Robbie J because he has been so helpful and supportive of me with the event. I have to give a massive shout and thank you to Robbie. So Robbie will be one of the DJs on the night where he'll be expressing himself. The Mex, who was with me when I was doing Pirate Radio, Clive Smith, you know, he's going to be a part of that modern room. And then somebody, you know, originally from Leicester, you know, I decided to give him a telephone call because he didn't want to know anything about DJing. So I called him a couple of times and he says, no, I can't do it. And then the third time, he decided, okay, French, I will be a part of it. And some of you know him as Simon Schooley Phillips. So Simon, God bless his soul.
He's in the first room or the third room?
He's going to do both.
What? Wait a minute. You haven't given me 2 sets. Chat bowls.
Oh, no. I want you. Listen, I says to you, my room is the Soulful Rhythm Sessions room. I said, that's my room.
No, I want 2 sets. I'm not coming there. He's not even from Birmingham and you're giving him 2 sets. Oh, no, my days. I'm only sweating you. Simon and I will be enjoying time together on Saturday and Sunday before we come and head to the event. And I got to say, I'm very excited about paying homage to some of the music I first heard at the PowerHouse. Also, playing some of the records that you always tell me you heard me play for the first time on the radio, put together as only I can when I've had a few drinks inside me, back home in Birmingham, bigging up my chest, throwing down, bringing on all comers. I'm getting riled up just thinking about it, mate. No, I'm taking no prisoners. People best watch out.
No, I like that. See, the thing is, I look at it like this. The main reason how I looked at it is that I'd like to have a night that I can go out to. I'm going to sound selfish how I say this. I want to have a night that I can go out to where I can hear music. This is my interpretation. And I look at everything else and I say, you know what? If I'm going to do something, I want to do it properly. I want to do it where everybody, it's edgy, it's twerky, but it's classy at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's my ethos into really why I looked at doing the reunion, because I just felt it needed a bit of genuine touch about who played. Sometimes people are available, sometimes people are not available. So you have to work with what you've got. Mm-hmm. But what's more important, I think, is that whoever's playing on the decks, they've got to be able to deliver. That's more important to me than having names. I know it's going to sound bad how I say that, but at the end of the day, it's all about delivery. And if a person can't deliver, then it's not going to be a good night.
It's all about authenticity, isn't it? And especially the crowd that you're going to be presenting the event to. They won't be fooled by some glitz and glamour names. If you're not throwing down, and that crowd in front of you, you know, when they, because the dancers as well, they want to flex, they want to show their skills, they want to show that they've still got it. And if the DJ behind the decks isn't doing it for them, Birmingham
Yeah.
people aren't afraid to let them know. You know, they'll stand there mopping the brow with the handkerchief to say, come on then, I'm ready to go again. I've seen them all at Southport. It was incredible. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Let me just say hi to a few more people here. Emily, good evening. She says it's all about the love of music. And Joanne is still watching and listening. She throws a name into the mix. Now, this is funny, actually. This is the only DJ I ever, apart from yourself, of course, because I was aware of you with the shop. This is the only DJ I ever specifically remember from the Powerhouse, and that was Simon Baseline Smith. And the only reason I remember him was because I question myself, but I'm fairly certain he used to wear a woolen hat with his name on the front. And that's the only reason I knew who he was.
I don't know about the name, but to be totally
100%
honest,
he had a hat with a name on, because that's the only reason I knew what his name was. On one occasion I saw him anyway.
I mean, I'll mention some of the DJs that was there. You know, I can't, you know, because there was a part of it where you had, you know, God rest his soul. You had like Paul Anderson. You know, he was a part of it. God rest his soul as well. Eric X, he was part of it as well. You had Sean Williams, you had Trevor M, you had Tim Westwood, you had Graham Park, you had you had Baz for Jazz, you had Rhythm Doc, you had Shaquille Dixon, you had oh God, there's so many. I can see the faces, Ralph Randall. I can see the faces, but it's my memory starting to flag a little bit. But there's some great DJs that
So were there
appeared.
it's probably unfair of me to ask, were there ever any that stood head and shoulders above others that you knew when they played it was their time and the place was going to erupt?
Well, at that time, and you know, everybody did a fair job, but Paul Anderson always seemed to bring something a little bit different to the table. So Paul Anderson had that little touch. And the one who made me laugh, but in a different sort of way, was when Tim Westwood played the first reggae track in there. I couldn't believe how the house, you know, I must admit, I didn't like it because I don't really want to hear reggae, but, you know, when Tim Westwood, I thought the roof was going to come off.
Really?
Yeah, I could imagine all the bad boys and all them, you know, all kicking off in there. But Tim Westwood, when the house side came in it, I also have to say Colin. For me personally, I have to say Colin. I have to say Colin Curtis. You know, he always brought something different to the table as well, from Lacana's forward. So I'd always have, personally for myself, I'd always have a massive respect for Colin and also a massive respect for Paul Anderson. So at that time,
Cool.
for me personally.
So you mentioned about the very first event that happened at the Powerhouse itself. It's Her Street, isn't it?
Her Street, yeah.
Was David Joseph. Tell us about some other huge artists that performed there. Some of them were already big, and other fledgling artists that went on to be huge that got their break.
Oh God, trying to remember. Well, you had Roy Ayers there. I think Joyce Sims was there. You also had Globe and the Wizkid, Prince Charles. There was others, but my brain's a bit foggy. But also as well, what was massive at that time was the electro scene and the breakdance scene. I'll never forget. I arranged, but I think I did this at the Hummingbird. Actually, I did this at the Hummingbird, where I helped to arrange a breakdance at the Powerhouse. But the one I did at I think at the Hummingbird. It was either the Hummingbird, I can't remember. But Paul Oakenfold, the great dance DJ, was the manager of the London All Stars. Richie Rich, who did Salsa House and all that, he was a part, he was the DJ for them. And I'll never forget this, where he and Scooby Swift, for the first time they met at the Powerhouse, Richie took Scooby apart because at the time Scooby was my brother-in-law. So what happened? I think it was in London when I took them at the time the Birmingham dancers, which was called not Street Force, Birmingham Supreme Rockers, something like that. I took them to Kisses nightclub in London, and Scooby, he got revenge on Richie Rich, and the dancers that when there was dancers kind of embarrassed the London All Stars, and that for a little time it was getting a little bit edgy. I thought it was going to kick off in there, and I had to go around to each of the London All Stars, shaking their hands, saying how good they were. You know, it was really edgy, and I had to give massive props.
Diplomatic.
Gordon Mack was the resident DJ there at Kisses then, and I mean, I was there a few times. He invited me down there to play there a few times. So you know, with going back to Powerhouse, I've digressed. Going back to the Powerhouse, there has been some great acts. Colin mentioned something to me the other day where he said that Ingram was there who did DJ. I didn't even know.
Well, you mentioned about electro again. All of this evolving sound and the changing of the guard. I think it was someone had said. I can't remember whether it was Neil Rushton or Colin Curtis who had said about the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
But the electro movement was my era when I was there, and I remember the very beginnings of that, where it sounds crazy to think about now, where the people would be on the dance floor in their white gloves, like doing robotics, pretending to play snooker, pretending to play golf, like a mixture of mime, robotics, and then the breakdancing would move on. But at the beginning, it was some of it was very basic, some of it was incredible. But those are my fun memories of those times, you know.
I'd like to give my respect to one of the main dancers on the breakdancing side at the time. He was an amazing body pop. His name's Flex Errol. I mean, he passed away, funny enough, 2 weeks ago. So I'd like to give my respects to him. And the electro scene, I must admit, it was massive. You know, for myself personally, working in Summit, this is going to sound funny how I say this, it used to give me a headache having to listen to the music all the time. It really did. Because it's like, when I was on my own, I was playing soul. When I was a salesperson, I had to play the electro, but the electro scene was massive, absolutely massive. The breakdancing, the dress, the whole thing, because even like with films, you know, like
it was just an explosion, the culture explosion. I mean, we're telling everybody everything that they know because we've all lived through it. Getting a lot of people commenting. Hi, Amy. By the way, I hope Lanzarote is being good for you. Great to see you had a lovely day up in the mountains. And Jeff Jefferson says they used to break dance at the Hummingbird. Emily is agreeing with me, saying remembered doing playing snooker at the Light Bar in Wolverhampton. And Kevin Casey Jones says Flex, R.I.P., a wicked dancer. So yeah, that the electro scene, just another in the history that would have been reflected up and down the country as well. But we're here to. Sorry.
With Flex, he was one of the best dancers in the country, not just in Birmingham. He was one of the best dancers in the country. He was absolutely amazing at that time. He was absolutely amazing. He could have gone on film and whatever. And he was.
Well, see, I not making any excuses. This is just the facts. I always look back and I think, well, I was so young, or I wasn't part of that clique. I wasn't in enough to know enough people. As I say, for me, it was about going up with my pals, trying to look as cool as we could. I wasn't the most stylish back then. I've never been the most stylish, but it was just about being there, enjoying the event, and then piggybacking alongside kids who are a little bit older, who I really looked up to. I put on a pedestal. They had the They had the style, they had the flair, they had the dance, they had the women, they had everything. And I specifically always remember a group of lads from Smethwick we always used to get coaches from Smethwick when we used to travel around. One of my good friends, Richard Douglas, he was good friends with a lot of them. And Leroy Hussey was one of that crew who I really looked up to, held him in such high esteem. And his pal Chris, who is no longer with us, may God rest his soul also. Just amazing memories, I can't help but be moved when I think about those days. And so we are here to remind people that we're going to relive them all again next weekend in Birmingham. So tell us about the new venue, because it wasn't your first choice. You had some issues. The rug was pulled from underneath you, right?
It was. Basically, the club there was like, from what I was told, there was issues at management level with the owners and the landlord where, there was a disagreement. So the management that I was working with, they was moving out. So as a result, I couldn't have the night. So it put me in a situation. This happened, I think it was last week Monday or the week before, and I was put in a situation. I had to try and find a club, and the one thing that I didn't expect to face, because I thought that with Birmingham, maybe it's just me being a little bit old school, with Birmingham there'd be clubs open, but everybody, I think it's more COVID affected, where all the clubs was open, all of them. So I couldn't get anywhere.
Everyone's trying to, now all the restrictions have been lifted, everyone's trying to open the doors to make as much money as they can while they can.
And God bless them, Tim and Chris at Sector 57, they offered me a night. They offered to take the event there, and I have to give massive respects to both of them for willing to do that. But in the end, what has happened, I'd approached the Loft Lounge, the Penthouse, first, and they didn't get back to me. So what happened, I went to, after I seen Tim, I had a call, I had contact from the club to say I could have the night. Now, I mean, you was there at the book launch, so I had history with the club and the management. They knew me. So because what had happened, they stopped running it as a nightclub to have the lounge, the Penthouse part of it, as a training centre. Okay. So that's what happened. So after COVID, the training centre came out of the lounge, so it became a club again. So when I found out it became a club, then I was given the option of having the night there, which, I took.
And is the sound system going to be up to it?
The sound system will be up, because I'll be putting in the sound system.
Cool.
I will be upgrading, but also as well, the club themselves are upgrading the sound system as well. So on both sides, the sound system will be up to scratch. The good thing about it, I'm praying that the night is going to be really nice. I'm praying for a really nice night, because what's going to happen, I can have the garden area at the back, so where everybody will go to smoke if they smoke. But if it's a really nice evening, a really nice night, I'll be able to take advantage of people enjoying music there as well.
Okay.
And also as well, if it's really busy, I can have the Loft Lounge as well. So it's a case where there's...
So I might get 2 sets after all.
Well, yeah. Hopefully. We'll see.
You didn't sound too confident about that. No, it's not
that. It's because you said to me, but I won't say this, that you wanted a... Right, so we can talk.
Everyone's going to be thinking, what's it been demanding? Okay, so we never got around to the live acts. Tell us about the live acts next week.
With the live acts, the first person who I had on the live acts who won't be able to come was Dexter Wansell. I wanted him there. And because of certain circumstances, as much as I wanted him, I couldn't have him. So he had to be taken off the list.
Because he was just there, wasn't he, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, he was at Southport. He was at the Southport
And
weekend.
wasn't he in Birmingham as well? Didn't he do a performance?
Yeah. Because if you see on Facebook, I've got a picture with me and Dexter.
Yeah, very clever, very clever.
So he was going to, I was trying my best to have him there, but that wasn't to be. So I've got Georgie B, who was with Second Image, who's now under the banner of Groove Association. He's done a couple of brilliant videos for me to promote the event as well. So I really appreciate what Georgie's done. So he'll be a part of the act on the night. Then you've got flying in from America. You've got Kim Tavares. So she'll be presenting her special new record now. And then I've got local talent, two very lovely ladies, MC, who you might know better as Cherokee. She'll be performing with Lindsay. So she'll be performing on the night, which I'm looking forward to as well. And also Charmaine X, who's a very good artist as well. You know, she's another local girl, and you know, I'm really, really chuffed where people was talking to me about, why are you having artists on this night? Why not keep it simple? Why not just have it music? And my argument to that, or my statement to that, is, why does it have to stay the same? Why can't you enhance tonight? Why can't you give people a night out? And that's what it's all about for me. So you've got the music, as far as I'm concerned. Please forgive me, listeners. I've got my room, the Soulful House room, so I'll be happy there, right? So that's me sorted. Then you've got the Powerhouse room, the main room, where, you know, we're talking about memories, we're talking about nostalgia, we're talking of friends who we've had, friends who we've lost. Music, I think back to the first event, and I think of some of the people that was there that night who can't be here with us now. You know, it's very special to me. It has a lot of meaning, and if people can embrace that, if people can support that, if people can enjoy that, I just want it to be a very special event for people to have a good time and to embrace special memories. And for, like what Jock said to me, if people like the new generation, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, and the 20s can embrace what their parents, what their cousins, what their uncles, what their niece, you know, whatever, their grandfathers, their dads, whatever, they can enjoy the music of then and hearing it played by people who actually played it then. That's a key point.
Joanne is asking, what is the dress code? Is it trainers, casual? Is it a nice place?
It's a nice place. No trainers, but casual but smart. So apart from trainers, there's no restriction as far as like dress is concerned. Just casual but smart.
Okay, that's worth noting. So we've been reminiscing about the Powerhouse, where it started for so many of us in Birmingham. Many tales. Yourself and Bruce already told the history of Birmingham, and off of the back of that conversation, I spoke to Colin Curtis at length. I spoke to Neil Rushton at length. There's a few more people I've got in the pipeline who are part of that story. You've mentioned them this evening. I'm not going to say anything just yet. We've got some great conversations coming up. So I would like to publicly thank you, Frenchie, for being a huge inspiration to myself. My channel is called Inspire and Be Inspired. You yourself inspired me all those years ago, and then in turn you still go out of your way to let me know how much I continue to inspire you, and that really does blow me away. So I can't say thank you enough for your kind words of appreciation on everything that I've done for you, brother. I really mean that.
Thank you.
Chris Harris sends us a wave all the way from New York, and anybody else that may be passing through. I think we can wrap this up now. Final push, if people want to get tickets, they are online, are they?
Tickets, they can purchase tickets from ticket sellers, or they can go to in Birmingham, Hatman, or they can contact the hotline, which I've got in front of me now.
No one's ringing a hotline. Don't bother giving out that number. No one's ringing a hotline.
Well, I'd like to give it to them just in case.
Go on.
07706390870. But I have to say this, Andy. I loved your advert that you did. Of course, I put my own little touch to it, you know, with the players bar. You don't know how many times I played the advert to myself, let alone anybody else.
Well, there you go.
I love that Soul Renegade mix.
Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. So, Frenchie, I'm going to say goodbye to some of these people now, and I look forward to seeing you next week. We'll chat in the next few days. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Care,
Thank you.
Take care. Right, okay. So, oh, what's that? Oh, you know what I was doing? Let me get rid of that. Sorry, I'll talk about that in a minute. Here I am. Hello. So yeah, on my own page today, on my own profile, what I wanted to do was try and get as many people in my friends list to see me talking to the legend that is Frenchie, because I would like to see as many of you there as possible. Suzanne, are you going to come down? Say hello. We're going to share a beer for old time's sake. I can't remember the last time I would have seen you. Emily saying she's in Italy, gutted. Never mind, I'm sure we'll get to share a beer at some point and have a conversation about our beloved vinyl. Jenny says a lovely show. Jenny, if you're not there, then I'm going to be very disappointed with you. Make sure you're there. The night starts at 8 o'clock and it goes through until 4 o'clock in the morning. So even if you can't make it to the end of the night, like old man Kevin Casey Jones, who has to bow out early, then come down early doors and say hello. It'll be great to see many of my friends. My first time spinning in Birmingham, I can't even think. Well, it would have been the last time I played would have been a vocal booth reunion a good few years ago now. Jeff's having a little smile, saying me and Schoolie gonna get mash up. I'm not getting mash up. I'm an old man. I can't take them hangovers anymore. But I'll message you actually, Jeff. We do need to talk. We need to pencil in a date where we can have a conversation, and we definitely make sure we have to get together. Okay, so looking on the screen, next Tuesday, same time, 7 o'clock UK time, I'm going to be over on the Inspire and Be Inspired channel. And that is a conversation with Nicola Farnhill, and it is the art of improving relationships. Maybe I could have done with some help on that as a 16-year-old walking around the PowerHouse, that route, circuit after circuit after circuit, trying to catch someone's attention, trying to impress them on the dance floor. Madness. And it only seems like 5 minutes ago, doesn't it, for all of us? So yeah, I've already done a conversation about toxic relationships. This one is about the art of improving relationships. Thank you to all of these people. You can see their logos coming up onto the screen. My Access crew members, very happy to have their support on a monthly basis. And I'll leave it there. Next week, over on Inspire and Be Inspired, Jenny's going to talk to Frenchie. Don't be asking for no guest list. Don't be asking for no guest list. I know how you stay. You can be my guest, okay? You can be my guest, Jenny. Jeff laughing and Emily saying, mash up, chatty shit. Yeah, that's what I'm starting to do. Chat shit. I'll get off, shall I? It's coming up to 9 o'clock here in Spain. I can still hear the rain outside. I'm done. Thank you, everybody. Love you. Thank you for your attention. Oh, no, before I go, just on the off chance you're interested, look at this. At my recent gig at the Southport Weekender, I was wearing this t-shirt. I had so many people asking me about them. I designed it myself. 4 guys who inspired me along my musical journey. Because of Louis, Kenny, Grant and Kerry. I think those names speak for themselves. If you would like something like this for yourself, I can change all of those names. On the back, there's a Weekend Warrior logo. All information on that is over on my website, djandyward.net. All right, cheeky little plug there. Might be interested for yourself. You might want to surprise that special person in your life with a nice little gift. Hi, Claire. Piping up at the end of the show, are you? Right, I'm done. Thank you, everybody. Be good now.